Hello, welcome. My name is Ted Severance, and in this show, I try to find interesting people who have a connection to Wadsworth, and I invite them to come in and tell Ted. My guest today is a person who has strong ties to Wadsworth. He and his family. Can we see his picture? And there is our guest today. No, it is not young Sheldon, because this man grew up in the 50s and 60s, and again, with strong ties to Wadsworth. My guest is Dr. Steve Danals, a chiropractor here in Wadsworth. Steve, welcome, and thank you very much for coming in.
Morning, Ted. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to start because, correct me if I'm wrong, there are 3 generations of chiropractors in your family in Wadsworth.
Sir. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know the 3. I'm sure a lot of people know of you and your dad. Mm-hmm. My mom, Steve and I did not just meet in the parking lot. I've known Steve, or known who he was, probably since junior high back in the late 60s, mid 60s. My mom was a customer or client of your dad's. My sister is a client of yours. You had a younger sister who was graduated in 1971 with me. Mm-hmm. So our families have bumped and touched in Wadsworth many times.
Correct.
I'd like to start, because we're going to be talking about chiropractic medicine, give people an idea of what that is, okay. Maybe what duties you perform,
okay.
And maybe a reason or two of why somebody would call a chiropractor.
Okay. Chiropractic medicine was originally first formally taught in 1896, and it started in Davenport, Iowa, by a fellow named Daniel David Palmer. The school he founded still exists, and of course there are numerous schools around the country, but chiropractic medicine basically treats people without drugs, without surgery. It's more of a natural type health care, if you will. We try to treat the body as a whole, more of a holistic type approach. We don't just treat the spine, which we're most commonly affiliated with. We treat all different joints to try to keep them within a normal motion, if you will, range of motion.
Range of motion, sure.
We all have our bumps and bruises over the years, and it's interesting because a lot of the more recent research indicates that if a joint becomes fixated, whereas what I refer to as fixated is it doesn't move within its normal range, that's a precursor for early degenerative changes to start taking place. They've done a lot of research in this area over the years, and that's one of the things that happens to humans as they age. If we have an injury that's left untreated, many times it'll start premature degeneration in the area of whatever joint's been affected.
So you try to get that back into its normal function.
Correct.
So that it doesn't deteriorate early.
Right.
And so what ache, what pain, why would they pick up the phone and say, I need to see a chiropractor?
Well, they'll get a pinched nerve, maybe in their neck, sciatica. There's a myriad of symptoms that we see and treat. Backache. Some people will have a disc injury where they're bent over to the point they can hardly ambulate. We try to correct a lot of those things without surgery.
Okay.
And it's chiropractic's an interesting thing. Some people feel, well, if I start going to the chiropractor, I'm going to have to go forever. Well, that's true and not true. The theory is you don't wait to go to the dentist until you have a toothache. You go to the dentist on a routine basis to try to prevent things from building up to the point where you can't stand it.
Right.
So we treat people for an acute issue. We try to get them on some kind of a preventive maintenance program where they may come in monthly, 2, 3, 4 times a year, just more as a preventive maintenance than anything else.
Are you a prescribing physician?
We do not prescribe medications.
Okay.
We can write a prescription for a handicap placard. We can write a prescription if the patient would benefit from a hot tub. We can also write a prescription if the patient has low back issues and they do not have an electric garage door opener. We can write a prescription for that. At least they can attempt to take that off their taxes
All right.
because of a medical necessity.
Well, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with Wadsworth and the connection. Your mom was not born in Wadsworth, was she?
No, she was not.
Your dad was not born in Wadsworth, was he?
Neither one. Nope.
Well, let's start with Mom. How did Mom end up in Wadsworth, and what was going? Let's take her up to about high school.
Okay. My mother was born at home in a farmhouse in Mercer County, Pennsylvania, near the towns of Greenville or Jamestown, very close to Pymatuming Lake.
That would be western
PA.
Pennsylvania,
Yes.
near the Ohio line, really.
Yes,
Okay.
not far from, actually, if you're familiar there, from the town of Kinsman. Ohio.
Okay.
Excuse me. Her dad was raised on that farm, and he decided he wanted to change his work, his field of interest. So he and my grandmother moved to Wadsworth. Excuse me. My mother was born in 1925. They moved here in 1926.
Oh,
And my grandfather, his name was Earl Waldo Melvin, and his wife was Irene. Earl went to Chiropractic College in Akron. There actually was a school there at the time, and came back to Wadsworth to practice.
so he dropped farming. Was that their property? They had property to sell?
His parents' farm.
Gave up everything and just moved here and started to school.
Yeah.
How old was he?
Oh gosh. Well,
Roughly.
he was born in 97, so he was, what, 20?
Man, that's a leap of faith
It was,
during that
yeah,
time.
Yeah. And
So-
he supported his family early on he bought bulk beauty supplies and barber supplies, and he would fill bottles of these particular compounds, whatever
Tonics
they
and
were,
stuff.
and he would sell those to the local barbers and beauticians.
So that's what he did to make money while he went to college.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So, and where did they live? While he's mixing up his concoctions
They
in the
lived,
basement.
I'm not sure where they lived at first, but they lived for quite some time on the corner of Prospect and Pardee Street. Would be the
The big yellow house would be the southeast corner?
no, it would be the northeast corner.
Okay, the northeast
Okay.
corner. That's
Okay.
the White House. Okay. Well, right across from where your dad ended up having
Where the
his
old
practice.
office was.
Okay.
Yeah. They eventually moved across the street to, oh gosh, I think it was 260 North Pardee.
Okay. So that your mom was one when they moved
They
here.
were moved. Yeah, they were.
Dad goes to college. He's a salesman on the side, and he gets his own practice. Did he open an office?
He opened an office down on College Street, across from the old Venner Memorial Building.
Okay.
They may have even lived there at that time. I don't remember. And then he opened another office in Rittman. This would have been in 1931. He started practicing.
Wow.
And by 1941, he combined the two practices and built our old office on Pardee Street at 256 North Pardee Street.
Which is the one your dad was in and the one you were in to
I
start
started
with.
there.
Okay.
Yes.
So your mom's here, dad's working, got the chiropractic business going. Did your grandmother work outside the house?
My grandmother, no, not much. She had a degree in massage therapy.
Really?
Yeah, so.
Prior to coming here? Prior to moving
No, I
in?
think she got that at the same time.
Okay.
Uh,
That's an
which was
interesting
interesting.
combo.
So she would kind of follow him around the office at first, you know.
Why not?
If somebody needed a massage, they'd get that too.
Well, that's interesting. So we've got mom here. She's going, so she basically went all through school in Wadsworth.
Yes, sir.
And I saw a video that she had done with Caesar Carino. And I think she said she went K through 12, or first grade through 12. I don't know if there was kindergarten, all in what you and I went to as the junior high.
I think that's correct. She might have, for a short period of time, gone to Lincoln.
Okay.
Because it was a neighborhood
Right there
school.
in Pardee, yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, she graduated from what is now CIS.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. She and my father both. Yeah.
All right, well, let's go back to Dad then.
Okay.
Dad wasn't from here. How did he end up in Wadsworth?
Well, that's an interesting story as well. My grandfather Danals worked on the Erie Railroad, and they lived in Ontario, Ohio, just west of Mansfield.
Okay, down off of Route 30.
Right, right on Park Avenue West. That's where they lived.
Nice.
Old Route 30.
Nice address, Park
Yeah,
Avenue.
Yeah, so my grandfather was a switch operator, and he got transferred first to Lodi briefly, and then to Akron. And the Akron job was interesting because he had quite a bit of experience. They wanted fellows over there that had experience because behind the Quaker Oats building, where Quaker Square now is, the three main railroads came together on one line for a stretch back there, and they needed experienced operators at each end to avoid a head-on collision.
It's always good to have a traffic cop on a railroad.
Right. So once they got the bugs ironed out of that, he got transferred to Wadsworth, and at that time, this was in the late 30s, there was a switch tower on Silver Creek Road where you cross the tracks south of town, near the Dutt Farm. And the reason they had the tower there, behind what is now Goldsmith and Eggleton, the old Barefoot Soul, there is a siding.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and eastbound trains coming from the west with a steam engine, it was too much of a grade for those long trains to come into Wadsworth. So they would break the train down in Sterling, Ohio, pull half of it into Wadsworth, back it into siding, go back and get the other half, hook them back up and go on into Akron.
That's the way it was back in those days.
Right.
That's just the way it was.
Yeah, and then after the war, the diesel locomotive came into being, which was much more powerful, of course, and they did not need a switch operator out there. So my grandfather got transferred into town, and he was the agent at the old depot.
So he got transferred by the railroad from Ontario up to Wadsworth, basically.
Correct.
And do you know where they lived when he got transferred? Did they live in the city of Wadsworth?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They lived in a house in the third block on Highland Avenue for a while, where the brick paving still exists.
Sure.
I think it was the second or third house on the east side of the road, north of Prospect.
Okay. All right. Got an idea.
Okay. Then they bought a house. I think they rented there. Then they bought a house on Ohio Avenue, and they lived there until 1950, when they built a new home on West Street.
That was a big up and coming subdivision when West Street was developed.
Right.
Kept a lot of trades in this town very busy.
Right.
Building all those houses.
That's your old neighborhood.
It is my old neighborhood. Well, and you weren't far from it on Frank's.
No. Right.
I grew up on Simcox. You were on Frank's. And,
Right.
Marcia and I, your sister, we all rode the same bus. And
Sure. Yeah.
when your dad got, or your grandfather got transferred up here, was your dad born yet?
Yes.
was-
Yes.
So he was a little kid?
He was born in 1923. They got transferred to Wadsworth in 1939.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And while they were in Akron, my father went to Garfield
Okay.
1 year, and then they moved here.
So we got Grandpa running the railroad, and we've got Grandpa, Dr. Melvin, setting up his chiropractic shop.
Right.
And their two kids, Bob and Esther, somehow meet. They must have known each other through school. Weren't in the same class, were they?
No, my father was a year ahead of my mother.
Okay. But they still in Wadsworth back then.
It's a small town.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what day they met, but the story
I think
from them, which I think my mother may have told when she was interviewed by Caesar, my father and his sister were standing on the street corner in front of what was at the time Brenneman's Pharmacy. It's now the Valley Cafe.
right.
And it was Wadsworth Week. Wadsworth was celebrating their 125th anniversary of the founding. And my mother was the queen. She got chosen to be the queen for the 125th celebration. And she was 14 years old at the time. My father was 16.
Which we have a video of that we're going to show later on in the
Yeah,
show
right.
of your mom. And for anybody who has seen a Miss Wadsworth pageant recently, wait till you see this video of her float and her parade.
Right.
Go ahead.
So my dad's standing next to his kid sister, Jean, and he turns to his sister and says, "Jean, someday I'm going to marry that girl."
The Miss Wadsworth
Miss
sitting on the float.
And my aunt says, "Who do you think you are? You don't even know her. We just got to town." She says, "I'll bet you $10 that doesn't happen." Well, 5 years later, and
Cue the picture of the wedding. There it is.
there they are.
There they are.
Yeah, this was June 1st, 1946, after my father returned home from the war. They were wed at the old Methodist church, which stood where the playground is, right next door to O.J. Work Auditorium.
Oh gosh, yeah.
We used
I
to,
never knew that church when it was in operation. It had been annexed by the school.
Correct.
By the time I came through.
right, yeah, because
Okay.
they were married in that church. Our new church was built in 1954.
All right.
The current Methodist church. So, yeah, they were married in that old church. And during the ceremony, my aunt was an attendant. In her glove, she had a $10 bill, and she pulled that $10 bill out and handed it to my father.
That is a great story. I love that story. I absolutely love it. So we've got your dad he graduates, and it's time to head off for World War II.
Right.
And what did he do in the service?
My dad was a yeoman, second class. He served on the USS Tomich. It was the hull number was DE 242. Fortunately, I went to a website a few years back and made contact with some of his shipmates.
Really?
I saw his picture online, and I befriended a gentleman in Illinois who was the helmsman. And for those unfamiliar with the Navy, a yeoman is basically the captain's secretary. So he spends a lot of time on the bridge along with the helmsman. So the helmsman and I befriended each other, and he continued until he passed 2 years ago. He would send me any newsletters he had or any conversation he had with any other shipmates. It was pretty cool.
That's a great legacy to keep alive.
it was cool.
So much of that stuff was lost
Yeah.
by so many families for a variety of reasons.
Right.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
So he gets back. We saw that they've gotten married. and then they start their family. Now, where did they move? What house did they move into when they got married?
I don't know where they first lived. They might have stayed with my mom's parents because my father went to chiropractic school as soon as he could on the GI Bill.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
And did he go to the same school in Akron?
No, that one was not there anymore. He started at a school in Cleveland. It was on the east side. I know he told me while they were there, they lived on Huff Avenue, which is not such a great neighborhood anymore.
Well,
but
I'm not sure I'd recommend it.
Yeah.
What do I know?
Then he transferred eventually to the National College of Chiropractic in Chicago.
So he's married and he's in Chicago. Did your mom go with him, or did she?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
While they were in Cleveland, my mother worked for Western Electric, and when they moved to Chicago, she took a job at General Electric. She was a secretarial job.
Okay. So we're talking mid-40s now, mid to late 40s.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, right.
So he gets his degree, and he comes back to start with his
Father-in-law.
in business.
Yep. Right.
Okay.
1950.
In 1950.
Yeah.
Now your father-in-law had built the new one across the street from his house by then?
Correct. Right.
And where were they living when you were born? Do you remember your first house?
Oh, sure. They were living on West Prospect.
Which is closer to the cemetery, right?
Yes.
That part?
Yeah. Just off of High Street. There's a duplex, which is very nice condition yet, almost directly across from Bob Plank's accounting firm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. There's a couple of them there, a couple of duplexes.
Yep.
And that's where they lived.
That's where they were when I was born.
Okay.
And they lived there until they built their home on Franks Avenue, which was in 1954.
That's about right. I think our house on Simcox was built in 52 or 53, so that would make sense.
Okay.
So you go through you went all through school in Wadsworth then?
I did.
Did you go all city schools?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't realize, well, we'll get into that later.
Okay.
And you played sports in junior high, starting in junior high? What'd you play?
I played basketball and football. I played peewee football.
I think we have a picture of the football team. I'm not sure we're in order, but yeah, there it is. From 1967.
That's my sophomore year. I'm in there somewhere.
Remember any of the other guys? I see Denny Beam.
Oh,
I don't
sure.
recognize
Tom Rabatine,
Joe Savage.
Smeshek brothers, Joe Savage, Bill Kish.
Was Bill your quarterback? Yeah, he was a quarterback.
Bill was
that
our
year.
quarterback.
Yep.
Terry Taken, Kit Kaiser.
Wow.
Tom Rabatine, to my knowledge, is the only football player from Wadsworth to ever play for Ohio State.
I intend to interview Tom. We've already spoke.
Good.
We're waiting for a few things in life to get ironed out between the two of us, and I hope to have Tom in to do an interview.
I still remember the day. Tom lived on Broad Street, and I remember the day Woody Hayes was coming to Wadsworth to talk to his mom and dad, and the whole town knew about it.
It's hard to imagine. It's hard for people, I think, today to understand how big a deal it would have been. He had not only Woody Hayes, he also had Bo Schembechler.
Right.
There were people that wanted Tom to go to their college.
Oh, yeah.
And that, back in the day, was huge.
Oh, yeah.
There used to be a picture hanging in the hallway by the gym at the high school of a guy named Gene Gossage, who graduated from Wadsworth.
Right.
I don't know the whole history. Went on to play for the Philadelphia Eagles, I remember.
That's right.
That was as big a deal, and that was so far ahead of us, nobody knew who the man was.
Right.
Tom was real life. I played football with him. He's a little ahead of me, but we wrestled, and he's got Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler coming to his house. That was a big deal.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
So You got high school. Did you golf? Was there a golf team?
Yeah, I played golf in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were your parents Rawega members?
My parents
back in the
were
day?
rock pilers, charter
thought-
members.
Were they?
Yeah.
Let's
Along
see.
with my
There was Dick
in-laws.
Moore. There was your dad. Help me. There was a handful of them
A whole bunch of them.
that they decided that farm, that dirt was going to be a golf course.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And do you remember what Rawega stood for? The letters.
Oh, sure. Rittman and Wadsworth Independent Golf Association.
There it is. For anybody who doesn't know why it's called Rawega, that's why it's called Rawega.
Right. Yeah. It was actually the brainchild behind it. It was on the old Winkler farm. It was built, and the brainchild of it was a guy named F.O. Keneal, and he ran the box board in Morton Salt.
Really?
Yeah, and one of his executives, Palmer Dolph, was pretty much involved with the start of it, and a lot of the employees on their off time would go out and help build that golf course. It was actually built by the members. That's why they call them rock pilers.
Harry Wyworth might have been
Harry
original.
Wyworth, yes.
But I remember hearing those guys tell stories about going out just to clear rocks
Yeah, right.
off of the dirt so that they could start planting grass for a golf
yeah,
course.
Exactly.
I mean, that literally was a grounds up,
Yeah.
hands-on
Right.
operation.
That's right.
And if you fast forward to, I don't know, even in the 70s when I graduated, if you went to a party out there, you went to a darn nice party.
Oh, yeah,
That
they had a
ballroom
blast.
was
Yeah.
a nice place. They had a full kitchen, fully staffed.
Yeah.
That was nice. I didn't remember if you guys were a part of
Yeah.
that. I certainly didn't know your dad was a founding member.
Yeah, he was a president of Rawega, I think, in 1964.
Okay.
And they had one wonderful thing which really brought the youth of the members together. In the summer, they would have 3 pool parties, one a month, and they would have a band and or a disc
Started
jockey.
in 64
Well,
when they started these bands?
oh yeah, before that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I never heard
They
of
had
that.
these pool parties, and it was great because Rawega, I think, was first opened in 1959.
And that was strictly membership only.
Yeah.
You either belonged or you got invited by a member.
Right, and you bought a share of stock.
Huh. And then you started playing golf. I think we have a couple of photos.
Yeah.
There he is in his in his attire.
That was at a tournament. Rawega used to host 2 benefit tournaments a year. They had the Jack Summer Cancer
I remember
Memorial,
Jack Summer.
because Jack was a founding member.
Yep.
And they also had the Chuck Snell MS tournament. And they were pro-ams. So you had a 5-man team, 4 team members, plus a local pro, some former touring pros. I know Herman Kaiser used to play in it. He won the Masters in, I think, 46 or 7.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Charlie Sippard played in it.
Yeah.
He was a local.
He had a golf course of his own down North Canton, didn't he?
Well, he might have at one time. He was the club pro at Sleepy Hollow
Okay.
in Brecksville for
Yep.
a long time.
I think we have another photo of Steve in his golf attire. There it is. Who are those
Oh, yeah.
crazy
Okay.
guys?
Well, that's myself on the right, and the gentleman in the middle is my oldest son, our oldest son, Nathan, and the gentleman on the left is our middle son, Kyle. They're both very fine players in their own right.
Nice, nice. Now, I got to go to the proclamation. Wadsworth has been blessed. I would argue with anybody, and Steve, you might agree with me. Growing up in Wadsworth in the 50s, 60s, and 70s was just about the safest, nicest place you could be.
Oh, yeah.
You were secure. Our problems, even if there were many of them, they were small, it seems like.
Right. Yeah.
But our mayor had time to issue a proclamation because he had nothing else to do or something to you for getting a hole-in-one.
Yeah, right.
Now, there are a couple things. A hole-in-one is rare. It's extremely rare to get a proclamation from your mayor for doing one.
Right.
Now, there are also, well, tell us how you got the hole-in-one. Where was it and what was the hole?
It was October 30th, 1991.
Playing fall golf.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a beautiful fall day, and I was playing with Dr. Mike Bianco, Dr. Jeff Case, and Dr. Steve Papp, and we were on the 11th hole at Westfield Country Club, where we.
Now, back then, were both 18s open, or was it just the old, what we called the old course?
They
were both open.
This was on the new course.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a nice downhill par 3 over water, and I forget. You can read the proclamation. I think it was playing maybe 138 yards. So I hit a pitching wedge, and of course the green was set below the tee, so I hit this ball about 15, 16 feet above the flagstick, and it backed right up, hit the stick, and went right in the hole.
Sweet.
And the other 3 docs I'm playing with, who were my great friends, they started hooping and hollering, and I said, "Hey, that's where I was aiming."
Oh, played the Fonzie card, did you?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Interestingly, on that round, the 10th hole at Westfield's a par 5, and I had gotten a new ball out, a new Titleist out on the 10th tee box. I eagled number 10, so
you're feeling good.
I'm feeling good. Make an ace on number 11, so I'm 4 under par in 2 holes. I walk over to the 12th tee. I retired that ball because I wanted to keep it.
Of course.
I pulled another ball out. The 12th tee was, they've redesigned it now. The 12th hole was maybe 380-yard par 4 dogleg right. So I was trying to remain calm. I took a swipe at that tee, on the tee, and I hit the ball about 10 feet.
Nice. What, you couldn't stand your own success.
No.
That's funny. That's funny. Now, there are other things that go along with a hole-in-one. You have to have witnesses, which obviously you did.
Right, yeah.
And then you have to buy a round at the clubhouse. Did you accomplish
Absolutely,
that?
sure.
You covered all your bases.
Yep.
I just, when Steve told me he had a proclamation from the mayor for having a hole-in-one, I thought, John Hanna must not have had a lot to do back then.
Yeah.
Albeit a good mayor that everybody liked.
He was,
Yeah.
That's right.
So you played golf, you played basketball. Did you, and we had good teams back then. We had a good football team for, I don't know, straight 6-7 years.
Oh, yeah.
And we had good basketball teams. Did you get playoff bound? Did you get into state tournaments with the teams you were on?
No, they didn't have state tournaments then.
Really?
Yeah. I think the football team would have gone a long way. Our basketball team was, it was okay.
Okay. And your head coach, would you say, was Ridley?
John Ridley was the head coach when I was going through, and then Dick Schultz came to town, and he was the head coach my junior and senior year.
Okay. So you get out of high school. You married Debbie Johnson. Mm-hmm. Did you guys get married shortly after high school, or did you go off to college?
Oh no, yeah.
Tell me what happened.
Okay, after high school, I went to school. My first stop, went to college at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, and I studied there for a summer term.
Again, for chiropractic work?
This just undergrad.
You're just doing undergrad work?
I took 4 classes: comparative government, Shakespeare, marine biology, and Highland sport and dancing, which I used to be able to do.
Yeah. There's a lot of things we used to be able to do.
Yeah. So I came home then and worked a short time at Morton Salt, and then I matriculated to Miami of Ohio.
Now, I think we have a picture of one of your jobs at Weldy's Golf. Is this before you left for college?
This was in high school, yes. Yeah.
That is Weldy's Golf. I thought there were 2. Where was this one?
Well, this one was on College Street, and
right where Jack's Jack is now.
Where Jack's Jack is now, or McCall's was.
Correct.
And that's myself on the left. The gentleman next to me is Sam Weldy. the proprietor.
Yep.
And the gentleman next is a fellow that was a year ahead of me in school, Frank Waldo. And then the last gentleman on the far right is Gary Waldy.
Yep.
And,
Sam's son.
Sam's son, and they were great to work for. Of course, minimum wage was not a lot back then.
I think it was $1.25, maybe,
Something
or
like
something.
that.
It was pretty low. I
I
remember.
tried to look at the pumps to see what the rate was back then. I can't see
read 'em.
well enough to see.
But now that was a full service station, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're washing windows, you're checking oil, you're checking air pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't do that 3 times, you were gone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
The big perk working there was if you were a decent guy, they'd give you a key and you could go down there on Sunday afternoon and put your car on the lift and work on it.
Wow.
So that
Boy,
was
who could
that was a
turn
big
that
perk.
down?
That was a big perk back then. Of course, you could fill your car up back then for $5.
I know. Sadly, I remember my '64 Chevy drank gas, but it didn't matter because it was 28 cents a gallon or something.
That was a great time.
You get out of high school, you're off to 1 year of undergrad work, and then you came back. And where did you go then?
Well, the following summer, I took a job for a man from town here named Bob Patterson, and he was the traffic manager at All Sides Aluminum Siding up in Cuyahoga Falls,
Sure.
Northampton. And I worked I was a yard boy to begin with, so they taught me how to drive a truck, and I was spotting trailers all day, but I also helped the mechanic in the shop, which was a rude awakening to me because, of course, diesel motors are much different than gasoline motors.
Yes. Yes.
And but it was learning. And before I went to college, I worked at Rowiga for 3 years on the grounds crew. So spent a lot of time outside mowing, learning agronomy, and
Sure.
that was
Now, were you working during the day and going to school at night, or were you?
Well, I was in the summers at
Okay.
Rowiga. I worked at the gas station at night
Okay.
when I wasn't playing sports.
Okay.
Weekends.
And then so after you come home for your first year of college,
Yeah.
did you go to a local college or?
I went to Miami of Ohio.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you live there? Well, you had to.
Yeah.
It was too long to commute.
It's in Oxford, of course.
Yep.
I went there 2.5 years to get enough prerequisites to go to chiropractic school. So
And was that in Chicago?
yes, I went to the same school my father graduated from.
So you got all your colleging, all your fetching up done, and then came home, and then did you get married? Because you're still going with Debbie, right?
Yeah. Well, she was a year behind me, and she was also a student at Miami.
Okay.
And we
I
got
didn't remember
married.
that.
Yeah, she graduated. She's one of the smartest people I've ever met.
Really?
I'll tell you.
Academic.
Any way you can imagine. Yeah, but she graduated a quarter early. Miami was on quarters, so excuse me. We were married May 11th, 1974, about 2 or 3 weeks after she graduated from college.
Wow. Okay. And what was her degree in?
Her degree is in interior design.
Okay, I knew she worked in that field. I didn't know that was her degree. Great.
Yeah, in fact, I believe she graduated from college with a 3.99.
That's
I told you she's really smart.
there. We have a picture of you two and your
There we
wedding.
are. That's the beauty.
That's what, 74?
May 11th, 1974.
The New Methodist Church.
Yep, New Methodist Church.
Nice.
Leonard Budd was the officiant.
And where did you guys live then after you got married?
We moved to Chicago.
Okay.
We took a honeymoon to San Francisco. Went to Chicago, back to Chicago. We lived in Elmhurst. The
Suburb,
college I
yep.
attended was in Lombard, which is the town just east. And Debbie got a job with a company called Plunkett Furniture.
Okay.
And she spent most of her time there. And I had, I think, 3 or 4 quarters left or semesters left of school. I took the liberty to go straight through school. They had a trimester system at the chiropractic college, so you could do a year and a half's work in 1 year's time.
It's a big help when you want to get going.
Yeah. So when I got out, I graduated August of 1975. I was only 24 years old when I started practicing.
When you came back and you had a nice setup because you could move in with your dad.
Yeah.
For those that aren't aware, that building that your dad built for his business, the chiropractic business, on Pardee, is tiny.
It's very
Where in the
small.
world did he put your practice? You?
We had a file room in the back, and we put an adjusting table in there for me.
Okay.
But we soon bought property and broke ground for our new office down the street on the corner of Boyer and Pardee.
Was there ever a time when your grandfather and your dad and you were all in business at the same time?
No.
He was long gone by the time you started?
Yeah. My grandfather, it was interesting, my grandfather died in January of 1973, and I was just matriculating to chiropractic college, so he did realize that the third generation was going to do it.
It's coming. Nice.
But yeah,
Nice.
that was kind of neat.
So then you and Debbie had 3 boys?
We have 3
And
sons.
I think we have a picture of you and the 3 boys. There's the young family.
Young family. That's, of course, my beautiful bride, Debbie, myself, Nathan is in the middle, Kyle's on the left, and Drew is on the right.
And where did you say you guys moved when you came back to town?
When Debbie and I first moved back, we stayed on Baldwin Street, just off of High Street. There's some semicircular apartments there.
Yeah.
We always called
Triplexes.
we always called it Pagoda Gardens.
Okay. Yeah, I remember they were the first places I ever knew that somebody called a triplex because there were 3 in each building.
Yeah. We rented from Lee and Connie Swinehart. They owned the west part, and we stayed there. Well, we moved in 75, and we bought our first home in 77.
So short of a blizzard, you could walk to work.
I could.
Yeah, you were right around the corner.
I did.
I mean, that's, again, I'm going to go back. That's what Wadsworth kind of was.
Yeah, right.
You had the A&P store there.
Right.
People that, a lot of women didn't drive back then.
Sure.
They could go to the market every day if they wanted.
Sure.
It was just a walk and you go home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just part of the beauty of what Wadsworth used to be. So you're in practice with Dad. You've got your family, and tell me a little bit about where the sons are, because they should be in their 40s by now, 30s, 40s.
Yeah, the older ones are in their 40s. Yeah, Nathan's 43. He's married to Cassie Bell. They live in Medina. They have a daughter, 8 years old, Charlotte, and a son, Cohen, who will be 2 this week, the 10th.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, that's them on the left.
That's the picture. The budding family.
Okay, our middle son, Kyle, is on the right. He's holding his youngest daughter, Abigail. She'll soon be 4, and he married Elizabeth Suladonic, and she's from Kirtland. They now live in Chesterland, and Elizabeth is holding their older daughter, Mary, who's soon to be 6. And then our youngest son, Kyle's 41, and our youngest son, Andrew, is standing just to Debbie's left. He's 39, and he's a fashion designer living in Hong Kong.
Really? How long has he been living in Hong Kong?
Over 7 years.
So he's got a home there.
Oh yes. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah. It's
And
interesting.
did we get to the last one, the youngest?
Yeah, that's him.
Okay.
Yeah. Andrew. Yeah.
So everybody's doing good.
Everybody's doing great.
And did Debbie continue while you were running your business?
Oh,
Did
yes,
she continue
yeah,
the interior
yeah.
design?
Yeah, Debbie worked 44 years in Brecksville at a store called Leopold's Fine Furnishings. She was the buyer, the store mom, everything. And she retired 2.5 years ago. And is enjoying that.
Yeah, there comes a point. I know you're still working part-time, right?
Right, part-time, and
I retired, and I'm still working part-time. You got to do something.
Yeah. I'm going to retire the end of this month.
I've heard you make noise about that. The end of this month, end of March.
End of March.
Is this an announcement that people need to take note of, or does everybody know? You're not surprising anyone.
People that know me know.
The only one that matters is my sister. Does she know? Because she's going to miss you.
Yes, yeah, she knows.
Okay, all right. As long as she knows, I guess you take your chances with her.
Yeah, right.
Cheryl will miss you.
Right, yeah. Yeah, getting back to the boys a minute.
Sure.
Nathan, this is kind of an interesting side note. Nathan had an appointment to the Air Force Academy, which in a Falcon Foundation scholarship, and he went there for quite some time, then transferred back to Akron U, and his degree's in computer science. Kyle went to Mount Union for 2 years, decided they didn't really have a major he wanted. He's a professional surveyor. Nathan's sells industrial sales. He sells fluid power, pneumatics, hydraulics, and that thing. So Kyle came back to Akron U, graduated with his degree in surveying and mapping, and Drew went to Kent State to the fashion design school.
Great school for that.
So interesting side note, Nathan was on the 8-year plan, Kyle was on the 6-year plan, Andrew was on the 4-year plan, and when it came time for graduation, all 3 of those boys graduated from college on the same day.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
I said, we can't go to all 3 of them. What do you want to do?
How are we going to do this?
Well, we went to Myrtle Beach.
Well, there you go. Nothing says graduation like a trip to Myrtle.
Right.
Now, you weren't only golfing and doing chiropractic work. You also had time for a little bit of quartet singing.
Yeah.
I think we have a couple of pictures.
Yeah, 4 guys from our church. On the left is Dr. Virgil Muckle. He was a research associate at Firestone Tire and Rubber. The gentleman on the left is Harvey Warner. He was the vice president at Barefoot Soul. That's myself in the light blue shirt. And the gentleman sitting down playing the piano is Gene Lawrence, who most people that have lived here very long know him.
Yep. Music teacher at Wadsworth forever.
Yes, and this is another picture of us singing. We all went to the same church. We sang gospel, country western, and a little bluegrass.
Really?
And we had and barbershop, of course. And we sang together for 17 years, and we had a blast.
Did you? You went and played gigs. You guys had hired.
Yeah.
You were paid musicians.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I love to hear harmony.
We did a lot of mother and daughter banquets.
Okay.
Tons of them.
As long as they paid.
Traveled all over Northeast Ohio. It was
fun.
very fun. Yeah.
That sounds good.
Miss it.
I think we have enough time. Is there anything that we've missed that you'd like to get in? I want to take time to show the pictures of your mom in her parade.
Okay.
And see where it goes. Oh, I do want to show, there's a picture we have of my sister. The Danals and the Severances have, like I said earlier, bumped into each other in life in Wadsworth.
Yes.
And one of the coincidences of life is Steve's mom, Esther, was the Wadsworth
Queen
of Wadsworth, or Miss Wadsworth.
Yeah.
There's Esther.
Yeah.
That would 1939, and my sister Charlene was the Miss Wadsworth in I think 64.
Correct.
If I'm
Right. She was the Queen at the 150th.
Yeah, they had a bunch of them came in. This I think was that time, and Caesar Carino got your mom, my sister, who was the one you mentioned earlier,
Betty
Gehring, Betty Gehring, and another Miss Wadsworth,
Yes.
and did a whole show on them.
Venner girl.
Correct.
Jim Venner's
daughter. And that was fun to watch and see how things were, how different they were from year to year.
Yes. Yeah.
Char won a trip to New York City
Wow.
when she was Sesquiquaint.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, and your mom was looking at her during the interview going, really? I didn't get any trip.
Yeah, right.
And none of the rest of them did either. I don't know how that disappeared, but
That's cool.
there's no other trips that I know of.
Yeah.
And she was from Wadsworth. She tells a funny story about that trip. I mean, she took my sister Cheryl, and the two of them get dumped into New York Airport, like one at LaGuardia or someplace, and never left Wadsworth.
Yeah.
They didn't know. Thank God they had a cousin that lived up there.
Oh, yeah.
And was able to help them get around. But
Oh, yeah.
that was a great interview to see. Before we wrap it up, we do have a short video of your mom's parade in her float in 1939. If we could roll that, it's kind of fun to watch.
This was shot by a gentleman named Don Parmalee. His son Bob Parmalee is a close friend. That's my mother in the band. She played the flute.
Is that her dad?
That's her dad getting her out of the car. They're walking to the float.
The motor, which I
That's the
commented,
motorcade,
I didn't
yeah.
know we ever had motorcycle cops.
Yeah, we did. Remember Hap Hamilton and Harlan Boehner. There's my mother getting crowned, and I know there's Isla Jean Leatherman on the left and Pat Parmalee in the foreground. I'm not sure who the third person was, but
Do you know if this was colorized? Did they have a color film and cameras in 39?
I think they did, because I also have a film of my parents' wedding in 1946, and it's in color.
Wow. Here comes the float.
Yeah, there's the float.
That is just, that's just the way
Lions
floats
Club
used
float.
to be.
Yeah,
Sponsored by the Lions.
Yeah. Oh, one little sidelight. My grandfather Melvin and my father and I were all Lions Club members, and we're all past presidents.
Oh,
That was
really?
another coincidence. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's, there's the old big wheeler.
Yeah.
I don't think you see too many of those in a parade anymore.
No.
And there isn't a car on there I don't want. I want every one of those cars just to play with.
Yep.
That would be fun. Well, Steve, while this
Pretty neat
wraps
video.
up, I'm going to say thank you very much for
you're-
coming down and
You're
spending
welcome,
some time.
Ted. Thanks.
I've enjoyed it. If there's
I'd love to come back. I got more to tell.
there's never an end. Well, I told you I'm going to try to get Tom Rabatine in here as soon as I can.
Sure. Yeah.
But there's been talk of doing like maybe a panel.
Oh, that
Guys
would be
from
good.
yours and my age that
Sure.
just our memories of growing up in Wadsworth,
Sure. Yeah.
sports, all of the above.
Yeah. Cool.
So
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be
with
good.
that, I think we're going to wrap it up. Say thank you for coming in to tell Ted, and until next time.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you. Take care.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.